Welcome everybody to Wellingtone's 18-minute webinars. Like you, after the last couple of years, I think we're all a bit webinared out. So we thought we would bring something new, something a little bit more snappy. So short, sharp shock of information in about 18 minutes, plus some Q&A should you have any. Speaking of which, we'll be dealing with questions at the end. So please feel free to add any questions as you go through in the questions panel or in the chat. Feel free to say hi, and then we'll get to those at the end. Today we're going to be talking about the PMO trends for 2022. It's always a good idea to kind of look at what the future holds at the end of every year, every calendar year. So we're going to be talking a little bit about PMO maturity, ways of working and different trends that we're seeing, and also having a little bit more of a focus on the trends that we're seeing with regards to people and teams. And then I'll share with you some next steps and how you can get involved in the conversation. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Emma-Ruth Arnaz-Pemberton. I'm the Director of Consulting Services at Wellingtone, and I'm also in charge of sustainability and corporate social responsibility. I organise our PMO conference every year called Future PMO, which took place face-to-face in October this year, which was really exciting to get back in the room. And you can find me on social media. You can scan the QR code on here, or you can search for PMO Ninjas. A little bit about Wellingtone, in case you don't know who we are. We are a project management consultancy firm. We have our head office here in the UK in Windsor, and we have also places in Dublin and in Madrid in Spain, as well as some partners in Costa Rica and Latin America, helping us to spread the good PMO word around the world. And our mission is to enable our clients to make a step change in their project management maturity. And we do that through a number of services, such as technology, consultancy, training, as well as events like this that we offer out there as kind of insights based on what we are experiencing in the industry. So let's get straight into it. We only have 18 minutes after all, and talk a little bit about maturity and the journey that PMOs go on. So the PMO maturity model that we have at Wellingtone, that we use with all of our clients, has 5 stages, very similar to a lot of other maturity assessments that you'll see out there. They generally have 5 levels, and they generally are named in this way, if maybe slightly different wording. But from a PMO perspective, we kind of know that at level 1, we call that initial. There isn't really any defined processes, and there's usually no PMO in place or any measures that we're measuring. At level 2, which is when most of our clients, I would say, start working with Wellingtone, there are pockets of excellence and there's usually some processes written down, but the application tends to be largely down to the individual or the team to use, which is more based on experience and the importance of using project management practice. At this stage, sometimes there isn't a PMO in place, but there will be some defined skill sets around the business. For example, there might be somebody in finance that does project accounting. There might be somebody in the audit team who's really looking at assurance for project management. At level 3, we call that standardized, and this is where all of our processes are detailed, they're repeatable, and they're educated out to the business. There is usually a PMO in place, which is providing guidance and limited education. And there'll be some measurement of some KPIs, which we tend to communicate as a PMO to senior management. At level 4, where lots of organizations want to get to, lots of PMOs want to get to this level, is where we have all of our processes are embedded and they're used consistently. And I'm sure those of you who've been in the PMO for a while, that's one of the key challenges for us, is to get that consistency across the business. There's always typically a dedicated PMO function, and that function enables communication. It kind of drives that culture of change and project management, and also supports learning and capability development. At this point, we do also expect to see that the PMO is measuring itself in terms of how it is delivering, as well as how the projects are doing. And at level 5, this is when we're in a continuous improvement loop. So we're really continually reviewing how we are performing and how we can improve. The PMO is usually at this stage respected as a centre of competence, and we see often a career path for professionals in PMO as well as project management. So that's the maturity that we're at, or the maturity journey. It'll be interesting for you to maybe reflect a little bit on where your PMO is and where maybe you think it would be realistic for you to get to. And it's important for us to understand this before we look at how our PMOs are changing and what's coming in the next year. So let's have a look first of all at ways of working. There are some obvious ones. Remote working, we're all back in that world. People keep calling it the new normal. It will be interesting to see when it's just normal and not the new normal anymore. But remote working, you know, we have to consider things that are great about that, but also things that are challenged. For example, being connected all the time. We're over-connected in some ways, and that can really take its toll on our people, which we'll talk about in a second. But also the positives of that, the ability to communicate across larger networks from particularly all over the world. But we do need to think about how our leadership are able to deal with remote working. One of the things that we've seen consistently is that leaders kind of weren't ready to lead from afar. So really thinking about how, as a PMO, we can support not just our delivery teams, but also the leadership in terms of how we can do things like assurance and governance. Technology, we've seen a huge rise in technology, which has been amazing in terms of what we can now do with technology from a PMO perspective, building community, delivering events and things like that. But also we need to consider that there are various systems, and we need to understand as a PMO, how do we get consistency across those systems? And also from a change perspective, how are people able to assimilate those new systems, that new technology? Have we assumed that everybody is tech savvy? Or actually, have we done the work in terms of supporting our people to make sure that they can work with that new technology? Risk management is something that I've been talking a little bit over the last 2 years. It really has been something that we've seen the rise of, not least because not many people, organizations, had COVID as part of their risk management plan and didn't have a response for the most part. And there are lots of reasons for that, but it's now becoming clearer that we need to see risk management as a strategic task, not as something that we do because of project management. So actually, rather than deal with our planning and then do our risk management, we should really be looking at making sure that our risk management informs our planning processes, especially considering that kind of volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world that we're in right now. And lastly, in terms of ways of working, are the governance processes. Many PMOs have really had to deal with a situation where governance hasn't happened, assurance hasn't happened because of availability, people being dispersed, working from home. And really take the time now to think about, have we still been successful in terms of our project delivery? One of the things that we've found is there are a lot more people doing project management than the original project managers or the delivery team. So how do we support accidental project management? And can we review our ways of working to make it easy for anybody, whether they have a project management qualification or not, to be able to deliver in a practical, simple way without having to deal with lots and lots of bureaucracy? If we've managed to survive for the last couple of years without every single touch point, maybe we can take a more pragmatic view at our ways of working. And those are the trends that we're seeing. So remote working, technology is going to be a huge driver. You know, the artificial intelligence is growing every day. Bringing forward risk management, making it part of the conversation and looking at our governance processes. And in terms of our teams, education, we know that we've seen a huge rise in online learning, and so now there are multiple ways. Now we're doing these webinars, we're delivering courses in our remote live format rather than classroom. So we need to be mindful as PMOs that we are supporting people both with those multiple ways of working. What do we have access to internally and externally, and how can we help to build capability? But we also need to be mindful that a lot that's out there, all of these courses that have exploded, are creating experts. So lots of people kind of go away and they do a course on LinkedIn or whatever system they're using, and then they come back and say, right, I'm an expert in X. We need to balance that with the expertise, but the knowledge versus the experience, the actual experience of doing that. So making sure that we're not bringing new services into our PMO that we're just not quite ready yet to deliver. So being mindful that anything that our people are using to learn, that, you know, we are doing some quality testing, that we are making sure that the theory that sits behind that is backed up by more than opinion. The other thing that we've seen and that we are going to see more of, we believe, is the rise of trust in organizations. Whereas before, people would, you know, you need to be at the office, at your desk from 9 till 5. We're now seeing very random working hours. People are switching their working day to really work a little bit better with the unpredictable days, the life admin that has to happen. You know, not too long ago, people were doing homeschooling. So we are seeing that organizations are trusting more in their humans and their adults to kind of manage their day-to-day a little bit better. So it wouldn't surprise us if we see a lot of changes in the way that the organizations interact with their individuals, with their employees. And with that really comes the concept or the conversation around well-being, which again, we've seen a huge rise, and it is becoming the most important conversation, and it's going to continue to roll into the future, into 2022. So considering the perceptions, how have people experienced the pandemic? Not everybody has experienced it in a positive way. And thinking about how resilient are our people? You know, is there fear in terms of coming back into the office in the new year? Do we have a community in place to kind of help people and really kind of make that transition back into that spending some time in the office easier for people? And also not assuming that everybody has the same view on that as well. So really thinking about, are we supporting as a PMO our people to be a little bit more resilient, to build that within them? So not just looking at the technical aspects of project management, but also the human aspects that we need to think about. Then last is the life-work balance, and it's really interesting that the conversations really changed from work-life balance to life-work balance. We've talked about working from home, the life admin that has to happen. We've all been on calls when we've had deliveries or parcels being picked up, particularly at this time of year. And remembering that more than 70% of people have said that they would welcome a role that is 100% working from home. So really giving people from a PMO perspective the ability to work from home, also live from home and make that distinction, but giving people the right access, the right information to be able to work in that way and also be effective at that. And that, coupled with the trust in organizations, you know, not having our bosses maybe sitting on our shoulders checking everything we're doing, making sure that we are putting something in place to bring people together so that we're able to continue to build that trust, as well as building that effectiveness from working from home. I think we've all experienced days where we are really productive, and we've all experienced days where we feel like I've achieved nothing today. And I think that's normal in this kind of new life work balance that we're finding, that sometimes, you know, our days are busier than others. Sometimes we might start earlier, we might finish later, we might have a break in the middle to deal with stuff. And that's really helping people with their well-being, with their ability to be a little bit more resilient and to adapt to the situation that they find themselves in, however long that lasts. So in terms of teams and that people at Wellingtone, we always talk about human first, PMO second, and that's who we are. So really thinking from a PMO perspective, how can we support people who are keen to learn? How do we make sure that the content is valuable and it's going to add to our project management practice as well as to the individuals? What can we put in place to continue to build that trust, that life-work balance that people are enjoying for the most part, not everybody, but for the most part, and that well-being element, really kind of making sure that we are checking in with the people maybe we don't speak to every day. So building that community to bring people together so that everybody can share their experiences and everybody can support each other. And that's it in terms of the trends. We've looked at two specific ones, so kind of the ways of working, really looking at the mechanics of working in a PMO and supporting our internal customers, thinking about things like governance and the importance of risk management that we've maybe not taken that seriously before, and then really thinking also about the people who are humans first and PMO second. Thanks, Hannah, and thank you everybody for joining. Hopefully the short, sharp ways of doing webinars works for you. If you do have any follow-up questions, check Hannah's email and also get in touch and keep the conversation going. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.